Hey, Dev Nation, please help me welcome the world's fastest reader, Howard Berg. Howard, how you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I wanted you to just give a little bit of intro of who you are, where you come from, and why you decided to become the world's fastest reader.
Okay, well, I'm Howard Berg. I'm the world's fastest reader. I grew up in Brooklyn, and I'll talk a little about that when we get into the interview, which had a lot to do with me becoming the world's fastest reader. In fact, that's part of your question, so I'll answer it now. I grew up in a bad part of Brooklyn, the projects, lots of gangs, it's very violent. And I found at a very early age the safest place in my neighborhood was the library. Gang kids would rather be dead than go to a library.
Mhm.
So I read a lot. So I had college reading when I was 11. And I went to college at 17. I went to the State University of New York, Binghamton, to major in biology. In my second half of my junior year, I get interested in how the brain works. I wanted to be a psychobiologist, not a psychotic biologist. That's Frankenstein. A psychobiologist is the biology of behavior. And the dean said, well, you're a second term junior and you haven't had one psych course. You'll have to do the whole 4 year program in 1 year and finish the bio program at the same time. So you'll take 6 science courses at the same time, 2 4 hour labs, and I had 3 jobs. I was working 18 hours a week on the
Wow.
side. And he looked at me and said, you're not smart enough. And that's when I realized they never taught me how to learn in school. They told me what to learn and why to learn and what would happen when I don't learn, but not why. You hear a song on the radio once, you know it your whole life. Then you read the 7 habits of highly effective people, and the next day you don't know any habits. So I decided to do it anyway. I got up to 80 pages a minute. I learned how to use my brain. I finished the program in 1 year, the whole psych program. And I
Mhm.
took the graduate record exam in biology, which is like an SAT for graduate school.
Mhm.
And to review, I read 48 books like biochemistry, cell
Wow.
physiology, genetics, plant systematics, not what you consider light reading, and I got 3 questions wrong. So I was in the 99th percentile. I got an 800. And then I wondered, was it me or the system? Because it's a big difference between I'm a freak, I can do it, and you can do it too. That's a much better outcome. So I taught kids 11 to 15 the same system, and they did a 30 chapter book in lifelong developmental psychology in 1 week. And
Wow.
18 kids took the CLAP, which is the AP test. 15 of them passed it in a week. So I have 11-year-olds doing sophomore college classes in a week and getting the credit. So I said, well, this is much more important than how it can read fast. You can change the world. And so that's why we're here. People can learn this. It's a very learnable skill.
Absolutely. And I love how so you were in the projects, and so you went ahead and took like this really bad situation and made it into like a good positive situation. I absolutely love that. I guess to get a little more insight on just your upbringing, could you recall just a situation that you remember vividly growing up where you were like, you know what, I just need to stay in the library and like not do anything else?
I'll give you a couple. I was a hall monitor in my high school. So I asked the kid for a pass and he pulled out a knife, put it against my throat.
In high school?
Said, yeah, in the
Wow.
school. In school. He says, what are you gonna do about it? I said, I'm gonna hold the door. He said, are you playing with me? I said, no, you can go anywhere you want. As far as I'm concerned, you got a great pass.
Yeah.
Then I remember in junior high, the principal, not a kid, the principal gets on the loudspeaker and he said, students are reporting they're getting stabbed in the hallway today with hypodermic needles. So when you go to your next class, look carefully behind you. And then the bell rings and you go to class. That was my child. We moved when they raped an 88-year-old man. That was the final thing.
What?
My sister was a cheerleader. She was very pretty. And my mother said, they're raping 88-year-old men.
Yes.
You got to move. I mean, it was as bad as I'm saying. I was
Wow.
beaten with bats.
Oh yeah.
I was just talking to a woman yesterday I met who grew up where I did. She had someone shoot at her head, an ex-boyfriend, try to murder her. It was normal. My dad was pistol whipped. Like everyone was
Wow.
attacked. It was a free for all. So,
Hmm.
but what it did is it made me go to read. My mother would say, go out and play. It was like a death wish. It says, no, thank you. I
Wow.
read, because the worst thing with the book is you get a paper cut. It's
It's
not
true.
like someone slashing your throat. So I
Yeah.
read a lot. And yeah, I missed out on some things, but it made me who I am. And as a result, I can do a lot of good. Plus, I have another thing that came. I developed empathy. 'Cause I know what it feels like. It's like a war zone. I know what it feels like to be terrified. And it's one thing if you think people are out to get you and they're not. That's paranoia. What if they are? You're not imagining
Yeah.
it and you're actually experiencing it. That's that paranoia. So when I meet people who are suffering and frightened and trying to make life work for them, I was very lucky. I figured it out. I did well. And I feel like I get out of a very dark, dark place. And now I try to help other people. When you see my name, CPE, I'm the president elect of my Rotary Club. I do a lot of volunteer work. And I'm trying my best to help other people as well as myself to have a better life. And I think it made me more compassionate. You either get very angry or you develop compassion. I decided no child should have the childhood that I had, and I'm doing what I can to help others.
Absolutely. Wow. That's amazing. And so I was doing some research, and I also found you were reading from a very early age, like not just middle school, high school, even younger. Like at 8 years old, you're reading the theory of relativity, if I heard
Yes,
correctly, and
yes,
then at
that's correct.
11, at a college level.
Yes. And I
Why
was
the theory
also
of
studying
relativity?
mythology when I was 7. I started
Wow.
studying mythology when I was 7. I was doing astronomy when I was 6. I lived across the street from the Brooklyn Children's Museum, and they had a planetarium. They only had about 15 shows. I went every week. So by the time I was 7 and a half, I knew every show by heart, and I would help them do the shows. I actually was a museum guide when I was 6. I know it sounds crazy. Today, you can't
You
even go
can't
out
do
of the
that.
house when you're. It was different times. Your
Yeah.
mom said, "Come back at supper time." You're
Yeah.
6 years old. You're going out by yourself for the whole day. Well, the museum was across the street, and I would tell people, "Would you like me to show you around the museum?" And I did the tour. I told them all about the Da Vinci exhibit, and I showed them all the science, and I used to enjoy that. And then they give me a nickel or a quarter, which I donated to the museum. I never kept a
Wow.
penny, but I did that when I was very, very young, which I think foreshadowed my career as a speaker. If you're 6 years old and doing private tours in a museum, you're probably going to be a pretty good speaker when you grow up.
And absolutely. And I love how you also loved astronomy growing up. I think that was one of the first books I picked up growing up as well. Although a little later, like 12, I read what is it, the A Briefer History of Time by Stephen Hawking. I remember
Good
seeing the
book.
cover, and I was just like, whoa, that looks really interesting. I just picked it up and I was like enthralled in the whole thing. I read a couple chapters within like the first minute I saw it. I was standing the whole time just reading for like at least a good
Perfect.
half hour. So that's brilliant. And again, I love how you took this sort of a violent sort of upbringing, because I can also relate to that as well. I'm actually really surprised how much we can relate. Growing up throughout my childhood as well, I had more of an abusive father. And so seeing it now, I'm sort of piecing it together and realize how that sort of actually nurtured my curiosity and thirst for all this knowledge and information. So I
Yeah.
think that's actually,
Well, my father left when I was 6. He was with
wow.
Patton in World War II. So he had
Hmm.
PTSD, but they didn't have a name for it back then. They called it crazy. But he was the only one in his group who didn't get killed. He was a
Wow.
bazooka man in a tank war. So the first person they shot was the
Hmm.
guy with the bazooka.
Yeah.
So I was adopted by my other father. My mother remarried, and he became my father when I was 7 and a half, 8. And he was a wonderful father. But I know what it feels like. We went 2 years without one. We were very poor. My mother had nothing. She was a single mom with 2 kids, and it was very, very difficult. We didn't know. They didn't
Hmm.
tell. My grandparents helped us. My grandfather had money and he helped us. So now I try to do what I can because I know what that was like and I experienced it firsthand. And so I have, again, more compassion having been there. I understand what some people are going through as they're struggling in life because we struggled.
Hmm.
And I've been fortunate. Now I'm not struggling. So I'm doing what I can to help those people.
Yes, absolutely. So speaking about helping people, so I really want to get into so how can we go ahead and just teach other people how to read faster, more efficiently, while sort of retaining and still being able to recall as much of that information as possible? Because I know that's something I struggle with. I can read as many books as possible, but if I don't go through the material and maybe sort of put some bullet points or the highlights, I find myself struggling with recalling as much of that information.
Would you like me to teach you some of that today? I could do
Yes,
that if you'd like.
yes, please.
Okay. Well, here's what I would recommend. Why don't I show you to read faster,
Hmm.
comprehend better,
Okay.
and remember? Would that be a good start? And we could
Yes.
also do a little EQ because EQ is very important.
Yes.
Most of the speed reading programs do not work. I'll tell you a backstory. When MSNBC first launched, one of their first interviews was Dick Cavett. He was a very famous talk show host in the 60s and said, like Johnny Carson. He's an older personality, maybe not be as familiar to someone your age, but he was when I was growing up, the Stephen Colbert. Okay. And we got to be friends, and he stayed after the interview, and we talked for like an hour. And he said, I interviewed Woody Allen, and Woody took Evelyn Woods, and he told me he read War and Peace, which is enormous, in 5 minutes. He says, "That's incredible, Woody. What do you remember?" And Woody said, "It's about the Russian Revolution. That's all I remember." And that was speed reading. It's a biology book. It's a book about calculus. You didn't learn anything, and you had to read fast all the time, or you couldn't read fast any of the time. It was just mechanics. And I changed it. I took what I learned about the brain. So now what I teach is you use reading to find what's new and you don't know, and I'll show you to do that. How to understand it when it's confusing, because it's not, you read the calculus book and you still can't do any
Yes.
problems. You memorize the formula, but you don't know what to do with them. Different problem. That's not a reading problem.
Hmm.
How do you remember it so you don't have to forget what you just learned tomorrow? How do you apply it when you need to use it? And how do you get in the right state of mind so you don't get nervous? Like if you're taking a test, you can't remember anything, you got nervous. So
Yes.
let's start with step one, which is how do you read faster? Would that be a good place to begin?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay. Well, the first thing I'd like our audience to do, and you do after you're done, pick a book you've read, preferably a nonfiction book. So the only thing that can confuse you is how quickly you're reading, not what you're reading. And read for a minute, normal. Don't do anything special. And take a timer. Time yourself for a minute. When the bell rings, take a pen or a pencil. Just put a little mark where you finish. You say, that's how far I read now. Now for the magic. Go to the second chapter and take your hand and go across one line at a time with your hand, left to right, with your eyes following your hand as fast as you could comprehend. So as long as you know what you're reading, go quicker and quicker and quicker till you don't. And that's when you know you went too fast because you know what's in the book already. You don't know what you're reading. So you slow down just enough so your comprehension comes back. And for 5 minutes, go as quickly as you can with your hand with comprehension. And go back to the first chapter where you tested yourself for a minute and do it again for a minute with your hand as fast as you could comprehend. And you'll see that little mark you made. You go 20, 40% further. Just doing that one step, which is what most speed reading programs would do. And it is effective, it does work, but if that's all you do, you'll have a problem. As soon as you learn something you don't know and you slow down and learn a new word or a new idea, you'll lose your speed. So let me show you now some of the things I did that changes how speed reading is taught. In fact, the man who owned Evelyn Woods was Maurice Thompson Jr. He was the owner. And he hired me to teach my system to his son. And he gave me a letter saying I went past speed reading and speed learning, bringing it into the 21st century, which is very exciting. I owned Evelyn Woods. He didn't own it now, but he did. So one of the secrets to comprehension, and it's a big one, it's a concept called schema. It's one of the main ways your brain reads and understands anything. So I'm going to read a passage that has no schema. Watch how confusing it is, because there's no schema. This is an easy thing to do. If possible, you could do it at home, but you could always go someplace else if it's necessary. Beware of overdoing it. This is a major mistake. It may cost you quite a bit of money. Well, it's kind of vague. You don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That's what schema does. Now I'm going to read it again. I'm going to put a title on it, one word, and instantly it'll make sense. That one word has schema. Laundry. Laundry. This is an easy thing to do. If possible, you could do it at home, but you could always go someplace else if it's necessary. Beware of overdoing it. This is a major mistake. It may cost you quite a bit of money. Makes total sense now. So I'm training people where these clues are in the book. So it's like a decoder ring. You're going 2, 3, 4 times faster with better comprehension than you did at the slowest speed. In fact, we did a double-blind study. We took 100 people and we used the Nelson-Denny, which is a standardized test for speed and comprehension. And to make sure the second test wasn't simpler so they looked smarter, we did 2 groups, 50 and 50. Half did the A and B test and the other half did the B and A test. So the second test was different. And then we did what's called an analysis of variance, which is a way to see if the differences were significant. Everyone in both groups doubled to quadrupled with no loss of comprehension. Most people doubled, and that was in 4 hours. That doesn't mean they don't go quicker with practice, but immediately out of the gate, after just 4 hours, they were reading 100 to 400% faster with very good comprehension. So I could say confidently, we know for sure that it will do what we promise. So that's the second thing is schema. So would you like me to go on with some of the other strategies, or would you like to ask another question?
I am curious when I guess going through the speed reading. I don't know if you're gonna go through it, but I do find myself struggling with subvocalization. How do we work on subvocalization when trying to read faster?
Subvocalization is a big issue. What a lot of people are doing when they're reading is they're moving their lips, and that's what slows them down. And I'll explain that in a good context. But when you're reading the road in a car, you might be going as much as 70 miles an hour. And you read the front, the back, the left, the right. You're bored. You turn on the radio, you talk to your friends, you're on the phone, you're watching your gauges, you're looking at your GPS, you're still bored. And now you read a book at around 200 words a minute, which is the mode most people read at that speed, in one direction. And you're lucky if the next day you know the name of the book and who wrote it, let alone what was in the book. Well, the difference is in the car, you see everything like a movie. It's very visual. In a book, it's like someone's talking one word at a time. So when we're vocalizing, we're saying words, one word at a time. So most people read at the same speed they speak. And that's what keeps them so slow. So one of the things to stop subvocalizing is using the hand motion. What will happen is you're going to go faster and faster, and you're going to reach a point with training, not just the skill I showed you, but with more training, where you're going so fast you can't hear the words. You're seeing it more like a movie, the way you see everything in the day, like driving in a car, which eliminates the subvocalization. But you don't want to totally eliminate that. You still want to hear words that matter, like vocabulary words, people who accomplished names of important people, formula, numbers, statistics, main ideas, questions and answers. These things you still want to hear. But all the buts and ands and ifs and prepositions, you don't remember it anyway. I mean, when you read a book, do you remember 6 months later all the words in the sentences? You remember the facts, the
Yes.
data. And so I'm showing people you don't want to stop vocalizing things that have significance that you need to remember, but most of the stuff is just there to create English, to create language. And so you don't necessarily have to remember every preposition and conjunction. And another trick you can use if you have severe subvocalization, and some people do, this is what I learned in graduate school. they suggested you put a pen in your mouth.
Hmm.
We're talking with a pen in your mouth. It's your average. You can't talk
Yeah.
with a pen in your mouth. So it immediately eliminates the normal self-vocalization that people are doing. That's one of the things that they recommended in graduate school.
Okay. And then uh with subvocalization, is that can it also be like internal? So if you're reading, you're just kind of reading in your head, that's also you can have some sort of subvocalization. I found
Yeah.
myself sort of struggling within more that realm of I try not to read like the or the of. What are some tips to sort of work on subvocalization internally when you're reading the ofs and the
Trying to
ths?
picture what I'm reading more. I'm trying to
Okay.
see. Let's just take a book on marketing as an
Okay.
example. Or in business. You're in business. I'm in business. Anyone in business has got to learn how to market, or you have no business. I
Yeah.
mean, that's just the way business is. No,
Hmm.
you can be the best doctor in the world, but no patients, you're not going to be there very long. So I'm reading, and I'm like, I'm seeing myself using the idea. I'm not just reading about. In fact, I'll give you a strategy that will help you learn it faster. When you're taking notes, most people just take notes on what they're learning. That's 1/3 of the information. I'll tell you what the other 2/3 are. I like to take a Word document and I set up a 3-column table. The first column is what you do. You take notes on what you're learning. Now, in the second column, I put my insights. Why is this meaningful or significant? The third column is how will I use this? That's an important piece that's missing. What does that mean? So now I'm writing down, I can use this in my marketing campaign next week. And this is what I'm going to do with it. So now instead of just seeing a lot of data and information, I'm seeing how it'll benefit me, how it'll
Yeah.
increase my income, how it'll make my work easier. Is my brain going to want to learn that if it sees me making more money? If it sees it taking me less time to do what I do every day? Or is my brain going to just want to look at lots of stuff, one thing after the other, with no reason, no purpose, no value, no reward, no punishment, just stuff, one thing? That's how most people study. It's one thing after another. And then eventually the brain says, I don't want to learn this anymore. I'm full. So I put in the third column how I'll use it, how it'll benefit me. And here's the secret. And then every day you take 3 or 4 of those ideas and use them. And that's when you're going to learn it. You're actually doing the strategy you read about. You're implementing it. You're carrying it out. You're applying it in your life in a meaningful way and seeing the benefit in your life. What are the chances if you did it, it made you 5%, 10%, 20% more income, that you're going to want to remember that you're going to like it, that your brain's going to keep doing that in the future because it saw how well it worked, versus you just read a lot of ideas, which is what most people do.
Mhm.
So in academic, I'm asking questions. How would I use this in my life? What significance does this have? How could I apply it? I'll give a good example. I majored in science, so I had to take, for a bachelor's degree, humanities. You have to take social sciences, humanities, electives. And I was like, well, what do I need that for? I'm a science major, but that's what they want me to do. I don't have a choice. So
Mhm.
I'm looking at, okay, I have 3 choices. I can go with art, music, or theater. And I decided I'd go with theater. And he said, what would a theater course do for a psychobiologist? Think about that. I'm majoring in psychobiology and I'm learning theater. What possible good would that have for me? Okay, well, I ended up doing a commercial that made $65 million, the top grossing self-help program of all time. How did I do that? I learned theater. I knew where to look at the camera. I knew about lighting. I knew about how to use my voice, how to inflect, how to create emotion, how to connect to an audience, how to be dramatic, how to be interesting, how to make people feel good about what they were doing. All things I learned in a course that I thought was a total waste of my time. It made me $65 million. I'll give
Wow.
one more example. In college, you have to take gym. Well, what are you going to say? That you got to take gym. So I took water safety instruction because I'm a good swimmer. So first, I paid for college by teaching swimming every summer. I was an aquatics director for 18 years. But one day I'm swimming in a pool where I'm not the lifeguard, and there's a drowning in the pool next to the one I was in, and all the lifeguards went to help. I wasn't working, and I didn't want to get in the way. It wasn't my pool, and I'm swimming. There's one lifeguard they left on duty. It was the adult pool, and I'm doing laps, and I noticed this guy floating when I'm swimming, and I'm coming back. He's still floating. He hasn't moved. He's 80 something years old. He's been floating for a long time now.
Wow.
So
Okay.
I swam over to him because I was trained, and I tapped him on the shoulder. I said, "Sir, are you all right?" He didn't answer me. So I shook him. "Are you all right?" He said nothing. I turned him over. He was dead. He had died in the pool. There was another lifeguard that was supposed to see this. Only two people swimming, me and this guy. And he's floating with his face in the water. Kid
Wow.
doesn't see it. So I'm a swimming instructor. I train lifeguards. So I said to him, "This man just died. You and I are the only ones here. We need to take him out of the pool and do CPR right now." And the kid was, "I don't know what I'm gonna get in the pool and help me." He gets in the pool. You know, they're dead weight. He's literally dead weight. He's dead. So we pull him out of the pool. We get him on the side. And I learned CPR like 10 years before, but I
Mm.
remembered it. I said, "You're doing the breathing. I'm doing the compressions," because he's going to throw up. When they're full of water, they like a squeezy
Okay.
toy. They're full of
Yeah.
water.
Okay.
I said, "I'm not getting paid. You are. You're going to do the breathing. I'll do the compressions." I got his heart beating. He started to breathe. He threw up. We got him on his side so he didn't choke.
Okay.
He was alive. When we got him out of the pool, he was dead.
Wow.
Now, that's a one credit course that I took in college that saved someone's life 10, 15 years later.
Brilliant.
You never know what
Yeah.
information you'll be using in your life that seemed totally useless
Hmm.
when you learned it. But I saved someone's life.
Yeah.
It was an amazing feeling to take someone who's dead and bring them back to life from something you learned. That's a good
Absolutely.
example of how to learn. When you see yourself using that information in the future, when you need it, you play that movie back
Hmm.
and you can use the information.
Absolutely. I definitely think I've found myself being a little more closed-minded with stuff where I'm like, I'm never going to use that. But as I've learned more, as you're saying, like, I actually realize I need to be a little more open-minded because those are like, if that's where your challenges are, that's where you could have the most opportunity in a sense. And then I also love how you structured like sort of the why I'm learning this and then how I can apply this later on. Because I found myself struggling with that as well throughout middle school and part of high school. Like, well, why am I learning this information? Oh, because you're going to need it for high school, or in high school, oh, you're going to need it for college. It's like, well, how about people who don't want to go to college, right? It's like, why am I learning this information and then how? So I definitely love how you structured that.
One more thing you can add to that, if you're reading on your own, you in the middle column is what did the writer do that made it interesting? Did they tell a
Mm,
joke? Did they tell a story? Did they put a picture in? What made this more interesting? You said, "Wow, that was fun." You ever read something? Wow,
yes.
what gave you the wow? Because whatever it is they did, when you're writing, you just found a way to make people say wow and use it in something you're going to use later. So I often will take notes, not just on what I'm learning, but what did that, and even in a live class, what did they do that made me say, wow, that was amazing? What got my brain excited? Because whatever it was, that's what I'm going to use someday in one of my programs to get other people excited too. So you're not just reading words on a page, you're more engaged,
Yep.
looking for the wow. You're also looking for the what bored you, because you don't want to ever
Yeah.
use that because it didn't work for you either.
Yep.
So now it's more engrossing, it's more engaging, it's more entertaining, it's more interesting.
Hmm.
So it's more motivating
Yeah.
because you're not just learning facts, you're also learning how to teach facts in a way that people will want to learn and listen to you later. And if you're doing that, then everything starts to become more interesting and not something you forget 5 minutes later.
Yeah. And definitely, I think it's even more important to also realize what doesn't work. And not just with learning, but like in anything. Okay, now I know that because that happened and I didn't enjoy it, I know to never do that again, and to do
There you
perhaps even
go.
the complete opposite, you know? Nice. So okay, so we're able to go ahead and read faster. How do we then from there go ahead and be able to comprehend what it is that we're reading?
There's only 5 things you need to learn in a textbook. 5 things. And that is the new words. 80% of a subject is learning vocabulary. And so, what words? They're usually in a textbook, they're bolded, they're italic, they're in color. They don't look like the other words. The writer's saying, look at this. It's
Mhm.
different. Why did they do that? They want you to look at it. And in many cases, they'll put a glossary either at the end of a chapter or the end of a book. So that's step one. Step two is who is in the book, the names of the people. Why are they in my book? What did they do? Who's in my book? What did they do? Three, any number, any date, any statistic or formula. They're important. You have to learn them. They put them there for a reason. Four, in every section of your book and subsection, we're talking nonfiction now, but we can do fiction too. What was the 5 main ideas? What was the writer trying to make you learn in that section that was significant? And then your process of figuring that out, you're learning it. And the last thing is any questions and answers. And here's a little honor thing. In most textbooks, most of the questions are at the end. After you finish reading, they ask you questions. So if you know that's there, the first thing you do is read the questions. How many times did you get to the end? They asked questions, you didn't know the answers, you had to go look for them. What if you knew what the questions were before you started to read? Wouldn't you pay more attention to something that answers a question? If I don't know, if someone wrote a book on something I don't know anything about, I'm hoping they know more than I do. And if these are the things they wanted me to know when I'm done, and they know more than I do, maybe I should want to know them too. If you ever sat and said, what am I supposed to learn? What's important? They just told you. Here are the 20 things I want you to know when you're done. So, but the problem is you find that out after you're done and then learn them. So learn them first. These are the 20 things I should know when I'm done reading this. Now I'll read it. And I know what 20 things I need to look for. And when I see one of them, I'll take more notes because I know this is important. How do I know? The guy who wrote the book or the gal who wrote the book told me so.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
if you know
totally.
every word and what it means, every person and what they did, every number and how it's significant, the 5 most important ideas in every section, and questions and answers throughout the book, what else do you think you need to learn?
I love that, starting with sort of like that end in mind. I mean, I definitely for myself, I mean, I think even recently, like throughout university, because I'm finishing up my university computer science, I find myself getting a little bored with some of the lectures sometimes because they won't say, hey, this is why we're learning it, even though I do find the topics interesting. So what I find myself doing is uh, I'll go ahead and look at the homework, look at the questions that they're asking me and say, okay, so this is what I expect to learn after I watch this lecture. And then I'll go back to the recorded lecture and then play the lecture after I've read the questions so I can sort of get as much information from the 1 hour lecture that they have. So that's
Remember the
cool.
passage I gave you about laundry? It's actually
Hmm.
something relevant to what you just said. They did an experiment with that.
Mm,
So one group, they told them nothing, and he just gave them the passage. Another
okay.
group, they told them before they read it, it's about doing laundry.
Hmm.
Another group, they told them it was about doing laundry after they read it. They found that by knowing ahead of time what it is it's about, it sticks better in your brain. When your brain sees meaning and significance ahead of time, not afterwards, but ahead of time, there's higher retention. Now, it retains more if it's told afterwards than it's not told at all. When you didn't give them any idea what it was about, they didn't have any reason to remember it. That it made no sense. It was nonsense. Why learn it? Well, I remember it. Brain doesn't want to learn nonsense. It's too busy doing other things. But between learning what it means afterwards or before works better. So that's an important thing you want to do before you read is preview. Go through the material you're going to read at very high speed just to see what's there. How does it go there? What's it about? What ideas will it cover? Did the writer do anything to make something look different? Because that's their way of saying, pay attention, this is special. So now when I'm reading, I have an idea of what I'm going to learn. I haven't learned it yet. I'm going to learn about the heart. I haven't learned the heart yet, but this chapter will teach you about blood going through the heart, and there's different chambers. They do different things. They all work together. And I'm going to be learning more about the specifics of what each one does and how it works and what its role is and how together they make us stay alive. But I'm knowing that's what I'm going to learn before I even start. And I see the sequence I'm going to learn it in. I see any ancillary material like charts or pictures that I'll have to help me learn it. So now if I get confused, I know there's a picture. I can use it even if it's the next page. I know there's a table. I know there's a chart. I'm not going to be as confused as someone who has no idea where they are, no idea where they've been, and no idea where they're going. So we have foresight, we have hindsight, and we know exactly where we are. And these are just some of the things that I teach, specifically how to integrate into reading fast. So by the way, if people want to learn more about it, they can go to Berg Learning, BERG learning.com. It's in 109 languages.
Wow.
So whatever language you speak,
You got
it's
it.
English, but there's subtitles in 109 languages to help everyone in the world become smarter. And we guarantee it'll work. And if you don't like it, we'll give you money back. We get very, very few returns because we make sure people get what they paid for.
Okay. Nice. Ah, nice. Um, and so when you say you go ahead and like look at the structure of the books, is it just from front to back you go ahead and break down the structure, or have you found yourself sometimes maybe doing like you'll do a chapter, break down that chapter, and then read through it, and then maybe another chapter, break that down?
Excellent question. Excellent question. Both.
Both? Okay. Because
So
I found myself doing more of the
I go through the
chapters.
whole book first. First question I'm asking is, do I want this book? How many times have you bought a book and said, this book isn't doing what I thought it would? The title
Yes.
was misleading. I just wasted 3 weeks learning a book that has nothing to do with what I need to know. You're going to know in 5 minutes, this book doesn't do anything like I thought it would do. I don't want to read it unless it's a textbook and you got to read for school. But then you're stuck. But at least you know ahead of time where the book is going and how it gets there. And then, yes, every time I read a new chapter, I skim it first to see, are there any pictures, any charts, any diagrams, any tables, any special words, anything that I might be able to use when I'm reading if I get confused. And what's it covering, and how is it going to cover it? So I have a very good picture of where I'm going right now before I get there. No, I haven't learned all the details. I can't answer every question. I'll give a good example. I did a graduate course in educational psychology, which was a 5-month course. I did it in 7 hours. It was a 400-page book, and the AP test was 6 hours long. So I read the book 4 times in 7 hours. I finished the 6-hour test in 50 minutes, and I got a B plus. So why didn't you get an A? I was a teacher. I needed 4 graduate credits to stay licensed. I didn't care about the course. I cared about the 4 graduate credits. What was my win? 4 graduate credits. I needed a C minus to get 4 graduate credits. I got a B plus. So one of the things that's important is, what's your purpose? What do you hope to get from reading this book? For me, it was 4 graduate credits. And so I got exactly what I wanted. I spent 7 hours and 50 minutes getting 4 graduate credits for $65. I could have gone to school for 5 months, driven there twice a week, lost 2 nights a week, done finals and midterms and papers and quizzes. In New York, parking was like $60 for a night. plus eating out, plus tolls and gas.
Yeah,
It would have
it adds
been
up.
about $6,000, $7,000 for 5 months. Or I
Wow.
did it in 7 hours and 50 minutes for $65. I think I did a smarter way of doing it. For me, it was a win. Could I have gotten an A? Sure. I probably would have studied 9 hours, but I didn't need an A. I needed a C minus.
Yeah, fair enough. And I am curious too then. So then is that for like, do you know if like a lot of schools tend to do that, or hey, if you don't want to take the course and sick the what is it, the 15-week semester, you can take an exam? Because like I mean I'm finishing up my bachelor's, but I am considering a master's, and it's like, well, if I could just try and study as much as possible. I find myself doing that even with my bachelor's now. I don't really pay attention to the lectures till okay, I need to actually learn the
Where
information
are you?
because
Where
I need
are
to
you?
use it. So currently my last year. Well, where am I? Sorry, Las Vegas.
Okay, I'm not as familiar. I know certain state. Okay, give an example. In Texas, where I used to live,
Mhm.
75% of your bachelor's degree could be tests that you didn't take the class.
Hmm.
So my students, when I lived in Texas, finished college in 2 years to 3 years because they took the test. In fact, they started college in high school. Most of them started college when they were 11. Let me give an example. Taking American history. Who's the first president of the United States?
George Washington.
You're in taking college American history. Who's the first president of the United States?
George Washington.
Actually, he's not, but that's the right answer most people would give. He's about the 15th. Remember, before we had two governments. We had three governments. We had the Continental Congress, and they had presidents of the Continental Congress. Then they had the Articles of Confederation, and there were a number of presidents.
Oh.
He was the first president under our constitutional government. There was about a 13-year lag between the end of the revolution and the Constitution. It wasn't the first government. So,
Oh.
but anyway,
I
most
was like, did I get that wrong? Like, I could have sworn it was George
most people,
Washington.
99.9% of the world would say George Washington, and
Yeah.
and it would be the right answer for the government we have today. But we had other governments. And
Okay.
so technically, he was first president under the Constitution we now have, but not the first president of the United States because we've had about, I think it was, it depends on who you, some say 12, some say 14. It varies from one book to another, who they count. But anyway, the point is, what you learned in high school is in the college course too. There's a few more facts, like I gave you. There's a few more facts, a few more details. So while they were in high school and it was fresh, I said, take a college textbook on American history and study it. Now go take the American History CLEP, CLEP. If you're in a college that's CLEP friendly, how do you find out? You ask the school, do you take AP tests in lieu of courses? Can I take CLEPs? If they say yes, which ones do you accept? They may not accept all of them. How
Okay.
many can I take? Now, in some places like Texas, 75% could be CLEP. The best case, Thomas Edison, which is Rutgers Online College, 90% CLEP. I
Hmm.
had one student did 4-year college in 6 months. He was a genius, took the course, learned how to learn, did 5 CLEPs a week. That means he learned a college class a day and took the test and passed it every day for 6 months and one online class. So in 6 months, he got a bachelor's degree, a real one. And it's Rutgers. It's from Rutgers. It's
Yeah.
Thomas Edison. And then he became a missionary. He learned Chinese in 3 weeks using what I taught him. Again, not typical. And then when he was 40, he sold his company for $38 million. So when people say, why would I want to learn your stuff? He sold his company at 40 for $38 million. Remember, Elon Musk reads 2 books a day. Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Oprah, Jack Ma read 1 book a day. Would you rather have their bank account or your bank account? What are they doing every day that's making them smarter and able to do the things they do? When people say, why would I want to read? Because you want to have a life. And we live in a knowledge-based economy. And people who have more skills and more knowledge are going to make more money than people who don't. Who makes more money? The guy that's drilling a hole in the road or a neurosurgeon?
Yeah.
The guy drilling the hole in the 100-degree weather in Vegas, 120,
Ah,
he's working his butt off.
yes.
He's putting in lots of time, very hard work. And the surgeon makes that same money in an hour that he makes in a week.
Yeah.
Because what he knows is how to take a tumor out of your head so you don't
Yeah.
die. Who will you pay more money to? That guy
Yeah.
took 15 years to learn what he's doing, but he's charging a lot of money for it. Most people, when they want to make more money, they do two things. They work more hours or they work a second job. That's not how you make more money. That's how you make a little more money. You want to make a lot more money? You learn something you didn't know how to do that pays better. I had a group of children, 11 to 15. These are children. One of the kids' brothers had Down syndrome. They decided to raise money to find a cure. They were 11 to 15. Using what I taught them, they learned how to make a website on their own from books. They learned public speaking. In their first year, they made 93,000 US dollars. Now, these are 11 to 15-year-old children. $93,000 in 1 year, and won the Silver Pyramid, which is in Vegas, by the way. It's the Academy Awards in advertising. They won as the best not-for-profit business in America. They were 11 to 15 years old. They beat Rotary. They beat the Red Cross. How can an 11-year-old do that? They read. Which person today can't learn what an 11-year-old did? My grandson, he's in his last year of high school. He started a company. He's making $4,000 a day. And he's 16 years old. How is he doing that? He learned. He learned how to figure out a business. He read books. He learned selling. He learned marketing. Everyone should be learning this. You're probably going to get out of college and say, I got to go get a job. No, you got to build a company. You got to work for yourself. You got to learn how to be smart enough to be in charge of your own life, not depending on someone else to do it for you. Let me give an example. If you have a medical policy, you're going to have to pay for it out of your income. I don't. I pay for it from my business. You're paying it with taxed dollars. I'll give another example.
Yes. Okay.
You buy a $30,000 car. How much does it cost you? $45,000. Because $15,000 is the tax you paid on the $45,000 that you made. And so you get $30,000 after taxes for the car. I buy a car. It's a business expense, and it is.
Yeah. And
I pay $30,000, but I write it off. So not only am I paying $15,000 less, I'm using that $30,000 as a deduction against my other earnings.
Yes.
I'm paying less tax because I had a business expense that cost me $30,000. This is not cheating. That's how the business is set up.
That's just how it works.
Yeah, you fly on a plane, you pay for your ticket. My business pays for my ticket because it's a business trip.
Absolutely.
You pay for it with money after you pay taxes. I pay for it before I pay taxes. That's how the system works. So I'm telling people, find a way to make a business. You'll come out way ahead.
Yeah.
Many of the things you're going to pay for after tax, you pay for before tax.
Yeah.
In a business. So it costs you a fraction, and then it's a deduction.
Yep.
Instead of an expense, it's a deduction.
Absolutely.
My computer is a deduction. It's an expense for you. My printer is a deduction. I'm a writer. Do I need a computer? Is it a business expense?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I have a TV in my workroom. Why? Because I'm on television. I need to record shows. I need to see how my programs look on a television so I know if they look right. I don't want to know what it looks like on my computer. I need to know what it looks like on a TV. Do I need a TV in my room? Is my business a video business?
Of course.
It is. So who pays for it? The business. Is it legitimate? Absolutely.
Yep.
I use it in my business every day.
Yes. Brilliant.
So that's
Yep.
the way people need to start realizing in America, you need to be in business. Let's say you do get a job. Nothing wrong with that. Still get a business. Do a second thing at night
Mhm.
or on weekends. And then a lot of the expenses that you have, you can pay for through your business
Yeah.
because it's legitimate. You're a writer. You have a business as a computer programmer in a company, but you're writing books. Do you need a computer?
Yep.
Do you need a printer?
Yeah.
You have to buy ink.
Yeah.
You need an internet.
Yeah.
You're a writer. Are those business expenses?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it changes everything when you realize that. Yeah, I think ideally you're in business for yourself, but not everyone's cut out for that. We know that. So
Yeah.
get a job and start a second business. And some of the expense, some of it, legitimately, if it's a real, not you can't say I went to Disneyland.
Yeah. You know.
Business expense. No, unless you're working for the Walt Disney Company,
Yeah. Then it's different.
and it's different. Or you took a customer there as a gratuity to thank them for a
Yeah.
business, then it's a business expense. But for the rest of us, no, that's a vacation after you pay
Hmm.
taxes.
And I've definitely heard about that too. Like, bought a $30 million airplane, but then they use it because they have to travel around the world to meet with clients and do real estate. It's like, that's
A
brilliant.
good one,
What happened?
like a couple of $1 million one.
Yep.
Somebody bought a Stradivarius violin because they were going to demonstrate this beautiful violin in all the great concert halls in Europe. That's a one. They started a not-for-profit to buy this multi-million-dollar violin to see it played in concert halls all over Europe. That's a very, very nice thing. So they bought it. Then he gave it to his daughter, who
Hmm.
plays the violin. And she went all around Europe and first class tickets to the most expensive hotels in the world and played the violin in concert halls, which got her a job in one of the places she went. And the IRS went after him. He said, I did everything I said I would do. He says, but your daughter did it. He says, where does it say my daughter can't be the violinist? It
That's
said,
true.
we'll buy a Stradivarius
Yeah.
violin and play it all over Europe for free. And she did. And she went all over Europe. Everything was paid for, her hotels, her food, first class tickets. She played in front of the best orchestras in the world. One of them said, she's really good. We're going to hire her. Did he do what he said he was going to do?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Did he break any rules? No.
No.
And the violin was a write-off.
I love it. And
That,
so,
that's the
what?
way the world works.
Why do you think people sort of get frustrated? Like, I think when people hear that, they're like, "Oh, that's cheating," or "You're not really," or like, "That's not."
They didn't read enough. It's not cheating. If they read more books, they'd understand that's how businesses do. Why do you think 1/3 of American companies pay no tax? They buy private jets.
Yeah.
It's a write-off. I needed a jet for my company. It was $65 million. It was a $400 million yacht. I needed it for my business. And I'm writing it off. Elon Musk just bought a $500 million boat. $500 million. I guarantee you it's a business expense. He'll entertain people on that boat. He'll take them on
Yeah.
trips all over the world. He's using it for his business. It costs him, I mean, it's a lot of money for us.
Yeah.
It's
Definitely.
the business expense. So now at the end of the year, they say, how much tax does he owe? He didn't make anything. He bought a $700 million plane and a $500 million boat. There's no profit.
Yeah.
He had a bad year.
Ha.
That's how Apple and all these companies do business.
Yeah,
They
Amazon.
buy stuff. They go in limos. Is the limo for the business? Absolutely. Is it
Yeah.
super expensive? Do they travel with first class and top tier airlines? Do they go to the best hotels and buy the best food? Are they on a business trip? Absolutely. Is it
Mhm.
deductible? You bet.
Yeah.
Is it cheating? No.
No.
They're using the system the way it was set up to their betterment. Now,
Yep.
I don't think they should get away with it. I think a company makes $100 billion a year should have to pay something,
Yeah.
to use the
Definitely.
roads and everything else. But right now, they're hoping to change that. But right now, that's what they do.
Hmm. Brilliant. No, and I love how you're all about, I mean, not necessarily just reading, I'm saying it's more of you're all about learning and teaching other people how to actually learn,
What it's
learning
for.
how to
I hate
learn.
reading. I love learning. Reading
Yes.
is reading is a screwdriver.
Hmm.
It's a saw. It's a tool. It's the benefit. The benefit is knowing things you need to know to be a success in today's knowledge-based world. That's the win. Reading isn't the win.
Learning. And thinking. I think a lot of people miss out. Like you have to sort of think for yourself. Even with like, I can even recall now, just now from eighth grade, you get your sort of math questions or English questions. You have multiple choice questions there for you instead of you having to sort of think for yourself the actual and work out the problems. I think that's something that definitely gets missed out a
I'll
lot.
give you a tip on that. Find all the wrong answers first. If you have five answers and three of them you know are wrong, what does that leave you with?
Say that
Two.
again. Two, yes.
You have five
Five, yes.
choices. No, three of them are wrong.
Yeah,
Cross
then you
them
have
out.
two.
What's left?
Two. You have two, and it's
And then
50
you
50.
start and you studied. Is there a
Yeah.
good chance part of your brain will recognize which of
Yeah,
the two is right? Most
absolutely.
people work with the five. No, get rid of the three. You know we're wrong right away. What's left? Two. So
Yeah.
now it's 50-50. And it really isn't because if you studied, there's something in your brain that learned it.
Hmm.
So it's probably like 80-20 or
Yeah.
75-25. Immediately, your
Mm.
grades would go up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, in fact, one of the things I wanted to show you is memory because we talked about it earlier. I
Yes.
want to make sure we cover it in today's program. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, if people want more information, go to
Berg.
Berg Learning, BERG learning.com, and you'll see these programs are amazing. They'll do everything I'm telling you.
And I'll make sure to
So,
also leave it in the description as well.
please do.
Yeah,
Please do.
absolutely.
It'll help them. And it really will help them. So, I'm going to give you 10 things to remember. I won't show you how. Let's see how well you do without a system. And I'm going to tell you now, not very well. You want to remember pole, shoes, tricycle, car, glove, gun, dice, skate, cat, bowling pins. Give me all 10 backwards.
Oh, bowling pin, I think you said was the last
That
one.
was the
I
last
was just trying to remember pole, shoes, and tricycle, and then I heard I think gun.
That's above average. Now I'm going to show you how to remember all 10 backwards and forwards in 3 minutes effortlessly.
Okay.
And then when we're done, I'm going to show you that it's not a drill, it's a tool. And you will use this forever, especially in the computing business you're going in. It'll help you enormously. Here's a tip. Remember 10% of what you read, 90% of what you say and do. When I ask you to say and do, please do that because you're going to want to use this. And by the way, this is so simple. A 3-year-old can learn this literally because I've taught this to 3-year-olds pre-K.
Okay.
Okay. The ancient Greeks discovered a shortcut for memory. There's many,
Mm.
but one of them is if there's a list you know, where is it? In your brain. It's hanging in your brain. Take the list you're learning, link it to the list you know. I'm going to bet, Ryan, you can count to 10. I feel very confident, and our listeners as well. And I'm going to show you to use 10 numbers that you know to learn 10 things super fast, effortlessly. The number one looks like a pole, like a flagpole.
Mm-hmm.
What's one?
Pole.
Two is shoes. How many shoes do you wear?
Two shoes. A pair of
What's
shoes.
two?
Shoes.
What's one?
Pole.
Perfect. Three is a tricycle. How many wheels are on a tricycle?
3. Yeah.
What's three?
Tricycle.
What's two?
Shoes.
What's one?
Pole.
Four is a car. How many tires are on a car?
4 tires.
What's four?
Car.
Jump. Go to two.
Shoes.
One.
Pole.
Three.
Tricycle.
See, it's working.
Yes.
Five is the glove. How many fingers are in a glove?
5.
Five.
5 is glove.
What's the only looking for your picture? What's three?
3 is tricycle.
What's one?
Pole.
Getting easier now.
Yes.
6 gun. When I lived in Texas, a lot of people had 6 guns. They love guns in Texas. What's 6?
Guns.
What's 4?
That car.
2.
Shoes.
7 is lucky in dice in Vegas. Throw a 7, you win. 7 is dice. What's 7?
Dice.
What was 5? I'm giving you a clue.
Glove.
3.
3 is tricycle.
1.
Pole.
Rhymes work. Say 8 skate.
Okay.
8
8 skate.
skate.
8
What's
skate.
8?
Skates.
Good. 6. What do they love in Texas?
Guns.
4.
4 car.
2.
Shoes.
We're almost done. 9. How many lives does a cat have?
9 lives. A cat has
What's
9 lives.
9?
Cat.
9 is
Cat.
what was 7 lucky in?
Dice.
5,
Glove
3,
is tricycle.
1.
A flagpole.
You know how fast you're learning?
Yes.
10 bowling pins in the lane. 10 bowling pins. What's 10?
Bowling pins. 10 bowling pins
What's
in a
1?
lane. 1 is flagpole.
2,
Shoes.
3,
Tricycle.
4,
Car.
5,
Glove.
6
Guns.
Texas. 7,
Dice.
8 rhymes with
Skates. Yes.
9
9 is cats.
and 10
Is bowling pins.
perfect. Now,
Wow.
here's how to use it. You just learned how to speed and learn numbers, which are big in computers, as you know. Okay, how do you use that? Let's say I'm in a hotel, I'm in room 314. How many times by the time you got to the lobby, you didn't remember what room you were in? So I make the pictures out of the numbers. 3 is a tricycle, 1 is a pole, 4 is a car. Picture this. A tricycle hits a pole on a car. Picture it. A tricycle hits a pole on a car. Tricycle, what number?
3.
Hits a pole
Hits a pole is 1.
on a car.
On a car is 4.
That's your number, 314, tricycle,
4.
pole, car. It's also pi in
Yeah.
geometry for circle. So I teach this to kids in school for math, science, and history. In business, it's due dates, percentages, and the 0, because the alphabet for numbers is 0 to 9. Those are the only things you get, 0 to 9. There's different places, units, tens, 100, but it's 0 to 9. The 0 is the 10 bowling pins.
Yeah.
So now you have a picture for every number. And when you have to memorize a number in your studies, and you do, I know a lot of what you do works with special numbers, you can turn them into pictures. Play back the picture, the number will come right back again. Now you're going to speed learn numbers.
Nice. And so I'm imagining when you want to go ahead and recall information, like you said, play that sort of movie in your head with the numbers. How can we use that for maybe like concepts or like maybe vocabulary or something like that?
That's why I have a whole program.
Yeah.
I have a lot. There's a 3-hour program just on memory, on memory. There's a 3-hour program on writing. I wrote a book in 5 hours. It went #1 on Amazon the next day. Reading and writing are the same thing reversed. Reading is input, writing is output, putting it in computer terms.
Okay.
When I'm inputting, I'm looking at what did that person do to make it interesting. When I'm outputting, I'm using what I found was interesting to tell my information so other people will like what I'm writing. Input, output. That's it. It's very simple.
Okay. Nice. And then so I'm curious more because I want to sort of also bring value to more of like the students that are going through school and whatnot. So I'm curious, how can we learn to perhaps study more effectively? You know, I'm sure we've all done it where we procrastinated for an exam we have later that week or literally till the night before and we have 3 textbooks to go through. What are some tips you have for how we can study and pretty much more effectively from all this information?
Like several questions, actually. You're asking about tests and you're asking about studying, but I'll answer both. First, for studying, if you're reading more than one book, one of the ways to do it is set up several columns in Word. In the first column, write down the questions that you want to analyze, and then look at each book and how it answers that question. So let's say we're learning about the Civil War. Book 1 said it's about slavery. Book 2 said it was about economics. Book 3 said it was about states' rights. And you're taking notes from each book and you're looking across and you're thinking, which of these was the most accurate and why? So you would say in your report, this person said that the main reason for the Civil War was economics. Now, most people think it was slavery, like so and so, and other people say it was about states' rights,
Hmm.
but so and so said it was about economics. I agree with them because, and then you give all the reasons why you think they were right. Here's why I don't think the other things were as important. So you're able to take multiple data from several different books, relate it back to a single question, and compare and contrast what one described versus the other. Well, you might say, I think all three of these have some relevancy, but not in the same amount. I think the main reason there was a civil war was economics. Let me explain. Back then, the US government had no income tax. All of the government revenue came from import export. And the primary export in America was the cotton in the South. They weren't buying American manufactured goods in Europe, they did their own manufacturing. They bought cotton and tobacco. So the South was basically creating most of the income for the federal government, but they had a lower population. So they had less representation in the House of Representatives. And a lot of the things they wanted in terms of slavery were outvoted by the North. So they said, this isn't working for us. We're paying all the bills and we have less representatives. So we're out. We don't want to be bothered with this anymore. Now, I'm not saying that slavery was good. This is what they were saying. Okay. To them, it made sense. We're making more money and we don't need you. We're not winning with you. You're not a win for us. So it was economics. And because you could make arguments for all the three, but I'm
Hmm.
just showing you how it's done. I'm not saying that's the right argument or the one I agree with. It's not. But it's how a student would take several different arguments and weigh them, compare them, and contrast them. Now, as far as taking tests, the first thing I tell students to do is skim the test very quickly. Any question that made sense, put a mark next to it. It means you saw something you recognized. And that's probably when you can answer. So if you run out of time, and often you do, all the low hanging fruit that you probably could answer quickly, you do first. So if you get hung up on a question, you don't miss 5 or 6 or 10 questions later, you would have gotten right and lost the credit. Secondly, another big tip, read the essays first. Two things will happen. One, your unconscious brain is going to now know what the essays are and start thinking about them on the unconscious, connecting dots and finding some of the material for later. And two, there's a good chance that on a thematic exam, some of the answers are somewhere else. So if I'm taking a test on circulation and the question is name 5 different types of blood vessels and their functions, and now you're in a multiple choice and you see which of the following blood vessels pumps oxygenated blood from the heart? The artery, the vein, the venu, the capillary, or the arterial? You just saw the 5 parts you're going to need to know later, and you know it because you saw the question.
Okay.
So you probably will mark it off. So then when you go to the question, say, I saw something about this, I'm going to look it up because I marked it off.
Okay.
So that's 2 things you can do as a student to help get better grades and study more effectively.
Awesome. And then I've also found to struggle like taking notes, either it could be within class. I've also found struggling to take notes within perhaps like a meeting, like in a conference room. So how can we take more effective notes when either in a lecture or in like a work meeting?
Well, I mentioned taking a 3-column table,
Yep.
write down what you're learning in column 1, your insights in column 2,
Hmm.
and how you use it in column 3. That's one. There's also something called a rocket book. Did you ever hear of a rocket book?
No, I haven't.
Can you give me a moment? I'll go get one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, these are 3 different rocket books. You can see they're different sizes. When you open up a rocket book, you can see there's codes.
Okay. Yep.
What you do on the first page, these codes are where the information you have. It works with an app on your phone. So
Okay.
this could be your OneDrive. This could be your Google Drive. This
Hmm.
could be your Evernote, whatever it is you want to send it to. And it could also be, this is science, this is math,
Okay.
this is computers, this is
Hmm.
music, whatever the subjects are. Then you have like a regular book.
Okay.
You use a special pen. You write on it the way you normally do.
Okay.
And you'll notice there's a QR code in the bottom.
Okay.
And very faintly, I don't know if you could see it, but very faintly on the bottom are the same codes that you
Yes.
had before. So now I write my notes in here on the Rocketbook with the special pen. I take a picture with my phone of what I wrote. It goes on the cloud. And then I take a wet cloth and I wipe it, and the page is completely clean again.
Wow.
Never need to buy another book for school. Every time you take notes, you take it in a Rocketbook, you store it on a cloud, you wipe the page clean, and the book is ready to be used in the next class over and over and over. You have one book for every subject. This is all you need. All the notes could be in one book. Okay. They come in different sizes. This is a little smaller, a little easier to carry.
Hmm.
This one you don't wipe. You see this circle?
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
put this in a microwave with a water glass on the circle. You
Ah.
put it on high. When this circle disappears, all the ink in the book has been erased by the microwave. So
Wow.
instead of wiping it with a cloth, it's done with a microwave. I like the one we wipe it, because if I'm traveling, I may not have a microwave.
Okay.
But if it's raining out, you gotta watch that. You know,
Yeah.
this one isn't gonna matter if it gets wet. This one does. And
Okay.
so, and I have a little one. You know those little
Yeah.
notebooks that are like
Like
fitting
a
you.
little.
I keep one in my pocket. So if I get an idea for a book or a course or anything, want to take someone's information down when I meet
Yeah.
him, I
Just
put it in my
okay.
Rocketbook because it
Okay.
fits in my pocket. They use a special pen. It's very easy to get. These pens are in all the uh, Office Depots,
Okay.
Staples. They all sell these pens. They're not hard to get.
Is there a name for the pens?
They're
Is there a
called
name?
Flexion pens.
Flexi.
There's special ink
Okay.
that wipes off with a damp cloth on the surface on the surface of a Rocketbook. So now, as a student, I can take notes or I can do mind maps.
Hmm.
I can also do mind maps, pictures showing relationships between what I'm learning. And then when I take my phone, there's a Rocket app in it. And
Hmm.
when I take a picture, it sees the QR code and it sees the code on the bottom that I
Okay.
circled. And it knows where to send the information on my cloud, which of
Wow.
the files.
That's
And so
awesome.
now, as a student, you'll never need another book. Think of having to only take this to school, one
Yes.
book, one book.
That'd be nice.
That's all you need to take, this much. Instead of all the books you take every day to school, one
Hmm.
book.
Nice.
Take all your notes, take pictures of everything, make sure it went on the cloud. It's on the cloud.
Yeah.
Get a go to the restroom, get a damp cloth or paper towel, wipe your page clean,
Hmm.
wash it off, dry it off, go to your next class. You never need
Nice.
another book.
And could you share a little bit more of that, the mind mapping, how to sort of make a mind
Yeah.
map, or even what it is?
Let's imagine we're learning a subject. So in the center might be what is a disease? So then
Okay.
there's the five causes of disease, the main categories.
Hmm.
So it might be what is a disease? Is category disease is in the middle. So what are the five causes of disease? Virus, rickettsia, protozoan, fungus, bacteria. What are bacteria? There's three kinds. There's the round, there's the rods, and the spiral, because they have special names, spiruli and cocci and bacilli, but we don't go into that right now.
Hmm.
So you have that. And then the other one would be what's the cause of tetanus? What causes uh, AIDS? What causes any disease you can think of? So we can have different, and it's like a tree.
Okay.
So the center idea and then the main concepts coming off. If you think about how teachers teach, they're talking about something and they start talking about something unrelated, completely different. Then they go back to the thing they were talking about. They go to another new thing that has nothing to do with anything. Then they go back to something else and you're trying to take notes and it's like all over the place. Well, if you have a map, you make a tree and they're talking about topic A, and then there's the subtopic is a branch, and the details of the topic are the sub branches, and then they go to another branch, and then suddenly they go back to a branch you did already. You go back to taking notes on the other branch, so you can flip back and forth very quickly, and then at the end you take a picture of it with your phone, and then you can transcribe it so that you take linear notes from it afterwards. And in the process of rewriting your notes, it's part of the learning process. You have to think about it and analyze it. So now you're using those notes more than just once. But that's an example of
Okay.
how to do a mind map. You can just draw a circle in the middle, the main idea. So you might say, let's just say, for argument's sake, United States of America, and you have 50 lines, one for each state.
Yeah.
And each state has branches for the main cities. And each city has branches for the main areas of the city. And each main area has, and so on. You can
Yeah.
do that. It's a tree-like structure.
Okay.
It's a
Yeah.
very good way. Many people will take notes that way. So the nice thing is a Rocketbook can do that, or it could take regular linear notes. And when you're taking notes that aren't in a computer in a 3-column table, the
Mhm.
way I do it is if it's a fact, I put F next to
Okay.
it. If it's an insight, I put I next to it. And
Okay.
if it's something I'm going to have to use later, I might put an application A, because you can use your own.
Nice.
You can put in your own codes, but the
Yes.
code tells me if it would have been in column 1, column 2, or column
Okay.
3. And then I got all that information in here. I take pictures of it with my phone. Goes on the cloud. By the way, you can do this collaboratively,
Oh wow.
because if you've got a Google Drive that you're sharing with a teammate and a project, you may have projects in your computer class. So you can make one of those things the project, and everyone in your team has access to that project, and you could put your notes there and they put their notes there. And then when you go online, you can see all the notes and see how
Oh,
everybody's stuff combines.
technology. And I love how you also talk about like, okay, the I and the F, because I found myself doing that with certain textbooks too. Like if I'm just reading through, okay, cool, I understand this part is this, and usually I put I for like information, like an interesting fact sort of thing,
Whatever
or
works.
yeah, but whatever works for you, right? So that's
It's
cool.
your
That's cool.
brain. What your brain
Hmm.
uses is right for you. There's
Yeah.
no wrong thing there.
Yeah, whatever you can
Perfectly
associate,
cool.
right? Yeah,
You might like blue, I might like red. That doesn't
there you
make
go.
that's the same thing. But yeah, that's a good way to do it. You're thinking. You're
Mhm.
thinking. You're categorizing. And by the way,
Yes.
one of the things we know about the brain is it's easier to learn when we work with categories. The brain sees how things are related when you think of it as a category versus it's just data. It's just
Mhm.
chunks of data, unrelated in any way to any other data, and everything is on its own. Much harder to learn than this is about plants, this is about animals,
Mhm.
uh, this is about geography. There's a category to it. Your brain learns better with categories.
Okay. Thank you. Yes. Nice. And well, so almost wrapping it up here. So I'm curious, just what have you found just sort of has been like the most effective daily habit for readers to implement on?
Be consistent. Read every day.
Okay.
It becomes part of your life. As you grow older, people who read when they're older have a lower onset of dementia and Alzheimer's. At your age, I don't think it's a high priority. But if you did it all your life, one day you will be older. Trust me, it happens. And your brain will be younger because you did that. Um, Read across the spectrum. Don't just read what's comfortable or familiar. Expand your horizons. Most people who became successful saw something somewhere else. I'm going to give you an example. Who's the richest man in the world? Bezos, right?
Yes.
You know how he became wealthy? He
Hmm.
used something from the 1800s. What did he use? back in the time the U.S. was going out west,
Hmm.
there weren't a lot of stores. So Sears and J.C. Penney invented catalogs, and they mailed them out to people. If you
Hmm.
lived in a place like Vegas, which was a rural place for a long time, and you needed something, and there were no stores, you go in your J.C. Penney or Sears catalog, you'd order it, and then the train would bring it there, or the Wells Fargo, and you'd get the thing you needed. Well, Bezos looked at that and said, I can put that catalog online. I'll call it Amazon. Now, J.C. Penney and Sears had the catalog, they had the infrastructure, they had the products, they had the distribution. They didn't put it online. They're going bankrupt. Every year they close more and more stores. Bezos saw the same thing they were doing in the 1800s and put it online. And he's the richest man in the world. What was the difference? He had vision.
Hmm.
They were
Yeah,
trying,
seeing what was going to happen next.
they were
Always.
trying to do what they did yesterday. Good
Yes.
example is
Yes.
Blockbuster. When DVDs came out, they came out with a brilliant idea. We'll buy it by the trainload. We'll have tens of thousands of stores, and we'll be able to rent DVDs for less money than anyone else can and make a profit because we're buying them in such bulk. And it worked.
Hmm.
Till Netflix says we don't need stores. We'll send them out in the mail.
Yeah.
What happened to Blockbuster? It went bankrupt. And then Redbox said, we don't need the mail. We'll put it in front of every drugstore and supermarket in the country for $1. Now, what happened there is Netflix got smart. Most people do not get DVDs mailed to them every month by Netflix anymore. What do they get? Streaming original content.
Hmm.
They
Yeah.
changed their entire business model. And unlike Blockbuster, they're a wealthy company.
Yeah.
If Blockbuster had gone online with original programming, they'd still be in business today.
Yeah.
Vision. That's what readers get. Vision. They see where it's going. Everyone saw a phone. It
Hmm.
looked like Captain Kirk's communicator. And then along came Jobs. He says, I can make a screen and put a processor in that sucker and turn it into a small
Yeah.
computer that happens to make calls. I'll call it an iPhone. How did that work out
Yeah.
financially? I'd say they did pretty well. Then he said, you know what? I can go and make it bigger. Instead of the size of a phone, I'll make it the size of a pad and I'll call it an iPad. How did that work out?
Yeah.
Really well.
Hmm.
That's what readers do. Readers are ahead of the curve, like Elon Musk and and Oprah and all the Warren Buffett and Bill Gates. They read,
Yeah.
and look where it got them. Look where they are in the world. Everyone gets 24 hours in a day. The
Hmm.
reason they have more than you do is they use those 24 hours better than you did. So if that's what's working and that's what they're doing, what does it tell you?
Yeah.
You should be doing it too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, we made $65 million teaching this on TV. So
Nice.
what did you, that's a pretty big win. I would have been nice if I got all 65 million. I would have liked that. That didn't happen. But it was the most successful commercial in this niche in history. So that's what you're looking for. Is it reading? No. It's making $65 million. It's being the next iPhone. It's being the next whatever it is that comes from your brain because you read things that connected that no one saw before. And go
Yes.
to berglearning.com to learn the secrets for doing this successfully. And we guarantee results where you get your money back. And we'll make sure you learn it because we want you to be a success.
Absolutely. And again, I'll make sure to go ahead and put that in the description for you guys as well. And one little story with the Blockbuster, I recently learned too that they had the option to, I think, buy out Netflix in the early stages, but they got complacent. So I love how it's okay. You have to not only learn and find what's next, but be open-minded to what's going to happen next, instead of just like, ah, that's never going to happen. That's never going to work. Like actually be open-minded to having that vision of the future.
You know who
Uh,
else that did that? IBM. The guy who made the Xerox machine showed him a Xerox machine. He said, that's
Yes.
what carbon paper does.
Uh-huh.
Think about that. They could have had xerography, but no, that's what carbon paper. When you lack vision, and where's IBM today to compare where they were in, say, the 60s? They were it. There was no
Yeah.
comp. Everyone had, IBM didn't even understand the laptop when
Hmm.
when Bill Gates went there, and when Apple, they didn't get it. They said, who needs a computer? Nobody uses computers. It's only companies use them. What would you do with a computer in your house? It's a waste of time. We're going to build monster machines the size of buildings. Their 20 gig hard drive was thousands, it was hundreds of tons. It was the size of a small room. 20 gigs. No, sorry, 20 megs. It wasn't
Okay. Yeah, I was like,
20 megs. 20 megs was the size of a room. A room.
that's crazy.
Now you got something the size of your pinky that's terabytes.
Yeah.
Okay. They didn't get it. And
Hmm.
look what happened. Are they still successful? Yeah, but they're not what they were. I mean,
Hmm. Yeah.
IBM, when you thought computers, IBM was the company everyone went to. IBM was computers. It was like like a Frigidaire.
Okay.
That was it. They
Oh.
were the name. Not anymore. They
Hmm.
lost vision. They lost opportunity. That's what reading is for. That doesn't happen to you. You don't become Blockbuster. You become Netflix.
Yes. Very true. And well, with divination, we're all about developing the mind, body, soul, self-education, really. So
All
I,
that matters. It's all
yes,
in the program
absolutely.
too. I cover all that.
Yes. Berglearning.com. And so I also wanted to just end it on what is a book you recommend on to better develop your mind, to better develop the body, and to better develop the soul or spirit?
Well, in business, the book I recommend is Unlimited Selling Power by Donald Moyne. It's about marketing, and it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. Most people who know about that niche will tell you that's an irreplaceable book. Everyone should read it. If you're trying to develop your mind, there's a book called The Light of the Soul by Alice Bailey. It's
Hmm.
the Lotus Sutra, which was the highest teachings of Buddha. And what it talks about is the obstacles to enlightenment and how to overcome them. But if you want something a little less controversial, try The Fourth Way by P.D. Ouspensky. It's
Okay.
about how to develop self awareness and not react to everything happening to you, that you become in charge of, instead of reacting, you become a hammer instead of a nail.
Okay.
Instead of reacting to everything happening to you, you become an active part of your own success. I'd say those are two books. Those are three books I'd highly recommend: The Fourth Way, Light of the Soul, and Unlimited Selling Power. One other business book you may want to look at, and you notice I have a lot of books.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Lant wrote a book called The Unabashed Self Promoter's Guide. It's about how to get into television and radio shows and newspapers. I've been on over 2,000 shows and
Hmm.
thousands of magazines and newspapers around the world. I'm going to say it worked. So that's free publicity. Think I was on Cavuto reading the healthcare bill. Now, how much would it cost to be on Cavuto for 20 minutes? If you wanted to buy 20 minutes of time, okay, how many millions of dollars would it cost you
Oh,
in advertising to be on that show? Millions of
yeah.
dollars.
I was thinking thousands. So.
Oh, God, no. That's a cable show that's got 5 people watching it. This is like the top rated show in its time slot. It's expensive. And there you are, a guest for 20 minutes, and you're not an advertisement. You're the center of the show. How many people are watching you? How many people are listening to what you're telling them and thinking, I gotta find who this guy is and do what he's doing? How much is that worth in your business?
Yeah.
So interviews, very important. That makes you the expert in your field. When every time they need an expert for something, you're the one they ask. People start saying, "Hey, we need to call Ryan up. He's the best there is at this,"
Yep.
and you get all this free publicity. It costs tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars for free. And plus, they don't go to the bathroom or have a cup of coffee. You're not an advertisement. You're the show. You are the entertainment. They sit through it. How many times have you gone to the bathroom or gotten a glass of soda when there was an advertisement on?
Yeah.
I'm not going to miss anything. But you don't leave in the middle of the show with an interesting interview, do you?
Absolutely. No, absolutely
You want to
not.
be that interview.
Yeah.
You want to be the one people, hey, listen to him. He knows what he's talking about.
Okay.
Reading. It's really the linchpin of everything in a knowledge-based economy.
Okay. And then berglearning.com, I believe we'll also be having like a promo going on as well, I believe you said.
Please,
So I'll make sure to go ahead and leave that again in the
please.
description. But that's berglearning.com, BERG learning.com. Howard, it was a pleasure to have you on. Thank you for your time.
I'm glad you're feeling better.
So yes, thank you. Absolutely. And I'm wishing you a great day as well. I truly, truly do appreciate your time.
Thank you. Stay safe.
You too.
And if you ever need a speaker in Vegas to come out there and do a program with you, let me know. I love helping people. I prefer being with people to being on Zoom. It's more fun.
Yeah.
When you can shake hands and,
Mhm.
and answer questions. But thank God we had Zoom for the last year. I wouldn't have been doing anything. I would have been locked up in a room. So
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely love how advanced technology has gone. Like the Rocketbook and Zoom. Like, I'm so optimistic for the future.
there's a lot to be optimistic about, but only if you're smart.
Mm-hmm.
The opportunities that existed when I was a kid, if you went to college, you worked hard, you did well. You were rewarded with a good job, good income. Not today. Many people have college degrees and they're broke. They can't find work. They can't find work that helps them pay off their loans. They're struggling. You don't want to be that person.
Yeah.
You don't want to be that person, and you have to learn to be smarter than the competition. People who are smart are still being rewarded and making very good incomes and having great lives. People who are doing what everyone else is doing, they're struggling, and you don't want to be that person. I'm trying to make sure people like you aren't that person. You're the person everyone else looks to. What did you do that made you so successful? And one of the first things you'll say is, I read and I learned something no one else knew in my business. And I used it in a way no one else used before. I made an iPhone, not a flip phone. And now look where I am. That's the answer you want to be able to give.
Vision. Yep. Absolutely. Howard, thank you. It's truly been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.